Hi friends, welcome back to our tutorials. This is Node.js full tutorial series for beginners. Today we are going to learn about the available core modules in Node.js and we'll also learn how to use them. However, the list of core modules is too exhaustive in Node.js, so it's not practically possible for anyone to cover all modules. However, I will show you way by implementing few of the modules. So in order for you to understand, learn, and then implement these core modules in your projects. You will get an idea of how to go about using core modules and how to use the methods which are available. This is part 14 of the Node.js full tutorial series for beginners. The full playlist link is in the description box below. Make sure you check it out. I have planned around 25 tutorials for you, which includes hands-on tutorials and live examples. During the course of the series, if you have any doubts, just drop them in the comment section below. I'll be happy to help you. All right, so far in the series, we have covered all these topics that you see on your screen right now. Today, we are focusing on learning about the core modules. So what are some of the core modules that are available? So there are so many core modules. You keep checking the documentation for updates from time to time, but these, what you see on your screen, are some of the built-in modules which are available. So the modules range from including from file system to HTTP to crypto to buffer to assert. And then we also have HTTPS, which is to make calls, then operating system to provide the details of the machine that you are working with, path, which is important to handle the directory and path, query string to handle the query, the URL query strings. We have URL to handle that as well. We have read line, streaming data, util, zlib, etc. Right, so the list is the list keeps on growing with the new releases of Node that we come across. So make sure you keep learning, make sure you keep exploring them. But to show you how to go about your business, let me show you a couple of core modules and implement them in our application to give you a fair bit of idea of how to use core modules. Right, so let's get started. Let me open the code. All right, so let me open a new file altogether and let's just call it say events or say core-modules.js, right? All right, so we have the core modules. Now, the first thing that we need to do, I'll show you, right? So let me make a list of core modules that we will cover. Core modules, right? So the first thing we'll see is file system, right? Which is nothing but FS in Node, right? So for that, we'll create a, so we need to require and import the node module. And how do you do that? You don't use any dot slash or anything, just say the name of the module. And in this case, the name is file system, so it is FS, right? That's the file system. Now we will say FS dot. Now these are all the different options which are available. So it's pretty good. It's a beautiful list of methods which are available, right? So in the Visual Studio Code, you can see there are so many different options which are provided. So what I'm going to do here is first we will have a test file. Okay, so I have a file here which I'm saying test.txt, right? Let's delete everything and just add into it and say this is test file, right? Okay, perfect. So now I have a test.txt and I'm calling it that it has some text inside it. Now, first thing I want to read, right? So when you want to read a particular file, we can say read file, right? That's a method called read file. And if you see the parameters that it says path, right? So it means it requires the path where your file is. Right now you can use underscore underscore dir also if you want to specify a certain different path, but here we are specifying, since it's in the same folder, I'm saying tst.txt, which is test file, text file. Right now you can use any file that you want to use, but I'm working with text file here. All right, so the next parameter it says is the callback, right? Or the URL encoding, right? So let me show you both first. So here I'm going to write a callback method, right? And here I'm going to write, now this callback will have two parameters, right? It will have error and it will have data. So whatever data we get from the file, we'll just display it in the console. Now let's run it and say core modules.js, right? So now let's run this here in the terminal. And now you see it is giving us the buffer data, right? It is giving us the buffer data because it's machine readable and not really human readable, right? So we need to read this file content, make it into a human readable content, right? So for that you need to pass the encoding. So what we'll do, UTF-8. So here we are passing the encoding. Now if you see the output, this is exactly reading the way we want it, right? Now it's reading, this is test file, which is the contents of the file, right? So this is one example of how we can get the data from the particular file that we are looking for, right? Now the next, let me show you one more example. Now what we'll do in the for the next example, we will um, simply add some data, right? So we'll write to the file. So far we have read the details, right? So now what I'll do is I will update this file and I will write to this file. So we'll use the same object, which is fs reference fs dot write file, right? Again, it will ask you, if you read the documentation, it says it requires the path, right? So it again asking for which file to you want to write. Then it says data. So let's say I will create a variable, right? Node.js tutorials, right? So some text, right? Whatever text you want to have. So here I'm passing the data, and then it says options, right? So there are no follow-up, no param callback, right? So there are no options to write. So here I'm writing this. So now let's execute this. So it says error. Okay, let's see what the error is. Okay, so it says callback must. Okay, so there's a callback that we need to add to it, but it won't take any params. Okay, that's the important thing. So here I have my callback, but it won't take any parameters. So here I'll say updated the file, right? Now this is particularly very important thing when you talk about logging, right? So we'll see that, right? So updated the file. Now you go to test.txt, it says hello world with node.js, right? So what happened is it has overwritten, right? Here first it is reading the value, right? And then it is overriding, right? So what we'll do, we don't want to override, right? What we want is we want to append it. So here I will say dot append file, right? So now what will happen is it will append at the end of the file. Okay, it will not override, it will not replace, it will append at the end. Okay, so now it says hello world with node.js tutorials and updated the file. So when we open it now, hello world with node.js tutorials, hello world with node.js tutorials, right? So this is nothing but it's appending again, right? So you will basically have different data that you want to update. So this is one example of how you can use file system, right? So we have seen read file, we have seen write file, we have seen append file, right? So let me show you a couple of more what do you call it, the core modules, right? So here the next one that I want to show you is URL. Okay, let's import that also. Okay, so here I'm importing the core modules again. So here I will say var URL equal to require, here I will say URL. Okay, so far I have now, so I have created a instance of URL and we got this, right? So now let's use the URL. So let's say I have a URL which I am sending, I'm getting it from the application user interface. right? And let's define that variable, say const URL link equal to, right? Let's say you're making some call to some REST endpoint, or you're getting data from some particular values, right? So you can say year equal to 20 and month equal to August and day equal to 27 and active equal to 1, right? So basically you can pass any query params to this, right? So this is a URL that we have which has few query params, right? So it has the base URL, it has the port number, it has the path, and finally the query params, right? So let's use our URL class now and get those data. So we will say URL dot parse, right? So here you will give the link that you want to pass, URL obj equal to. So I'm extracting that object. Now I will say URL. You can easily say, now using this object, I can get port number, right? Now I can get dot pro query, right? And then I can get, so basically you can extract everything from the slashes, port, path name. You can get all the details about that particular URL using the URL core module, right? So we can extract all the information from this particular URL. And that's the beauty of it, that you don't have to do any effort. It's all available, ready to use. We just have to know how to consume it. Okay. So once we have done it, it's ready now. So let's go ahead and test it. So now let's run it again. And now we see it says the data is here, right? So we get all the data that's extracted. Here you can see we have the year, this is the query, this is the port number, this is the path, right? So query, port, and path name, right? So that's how we are extracting using the URL. Now that's about URL. Now let me show you a couple of more. So we also have a class called util. We have class called HTTP and HTTPS. This we will cover when we start servers. We can also use asserts, right? So let's say you want to, so we can have array, we can have asserts, right? So we can have, you give better names, right? So here we will say console.log a dot, right? So here it will have all the details of asserts, right? So let's say you want to assert something, correct? So we can say, but asserts I think is deprecated. Let me quickly check that. But anyways, this is, we can cover it later. So we have file system, we have core. Let me see what all I can cover for you. So we have path, right? You don't want to use path because you are already using URL. Assert OS, right? So let me also show you quickly OS. So you can use operating system to get operating system details. So you can say console.log os dot, right? So you can get user info, you can get type, you can get platform. So basically all the user operating system information you can extract it here, right? So here you have the type, total memory, host name, dir, get priority. You want to get how much is the free memory, you can easily get that as well, right? So let's run it here. So basically you can explore, keep on exploring. So you see this here, this is function. So let's write it here. And this is also a function. So far it's beautiful, coming up good. We are doing good in terms of learning our things. So you can see here it is Windows 32 and this is the free memory of the machine. So basically you can get everything and anything. The list is too exhaustive, but we'll try and cover as many in our examples, like for example HTTP, HTTPS, all of that we will cover when we start server and client. There are other things like asserts, HTTP, util. So basically for anything that you want to do with your machine, there is a particular core module which you can use, right? And that is what is the beauty of Node.js, that it provides a lot of core modules that are already built in. So we don't have to do the work again and again. Go ahead, try out these core modules, learn about them. try and implement them, try and use them. As we progress along, I will show you different core modules. We will use them to do our work. All right, so this is some of the examples, like path, right? You want to get directory name, base name, etc. You want to join them, you can do that. File system we just saw. Operating system, right? So we can do get host name, platform type, user info, etc. We can do asserts, right? So we can use assert to compare and check the values. In the next episode, I'm going to walk you through events and event emitter, extremely important when it comes to writing actual Node.js and Express. You should be knowing about how to use the events and event emitter. That's an extremely important topic. So I'll cover that in the next episode. Make sure you stay tuned. Please do like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for joining. See you in the next episode. We cover events and event emitter.